backhands at midcourt for the win. He got it! Zamora.
Welcome to another installment of Moments with Mario, featuring New Mexico State University Athletic Director Mario Mocha. Moments with Mario is brought to you by BMC Technologies. BMC Technologies is a full-service technology company that empowers small businesses and specializes in cybersecurity, networking, and managed services. Welcome to another edition of Moments with Mario, or as I'm going to call it today, Quarantining with Mario. We have Athletic Director Mario Mocha alongside with myself, Brad Beasley. So walk me through the whole thing. So New Mexico State men's basketball wins the regular season WAC championship, at home, cuts down the nets. We're excited. We're getting pub all over ESPN. We're picked as like the upset Cinderella team of the tournament, heading, head on into Vegas to presumably win the WAC championship there. And then just everything goes to a halt. Kind of walk me through that process.
Sure, we felt great about having the nation's longest winning streak on the men's side. The women just won a decisive game the night before against UTRGV, and they had all the momentum. Gia Pack, our fifth all-time leading scorer, was back on the court, and we were playing number one Kansas City, and you figured, man, you get past them, we were on a roll. So teams were poised to do some special things in Vegas, and then Thursday morning hits. And there was an 8:30 a.m. board of directors meeting. That's all the presidents and the ADs. And it was amazing. That meeting started right at 8:30, and the first topic was the tournament. And you could actually see, there was a WAC representative in the corner with his laptop, and he was announcing AAC tournament just canceled. Big Ten just pulled two teams off the floor. So the discussion, which I'm talking 3 minutes, talked about do we have fans or not in the stands, moved to cancellation, and then, hey, how are we going to get everybody home? And immediately our deputy AD and COO, Brian Cartwright, he had some great connections in the charter industry through football, and he got the women home. We took one group home that night, and then the next morning the men got home, avoiding the rates and also the flights. And then that next day was Friday, and our director of sports medicine, Dominic Moreno, and I met with all 16 teams individually just to tell them, at the time the NCAA had just announced that day before that they were canceling all winter and spring championships, and the WAC was suspending them. And then about a week later, the WAC decided to cancel all the competitions as well.
So I got to imagine these kids were just devastated. I would have just been absolutely beyond myself, especially like Nick Gonzalez from the baseball team, who was, 9 home runs. He was by far the leader, in the country in home runs, and is poised to be a first round pick, and just boom, the bottom just falls out of it.
Well, it was certainly stunning for those athletes. A lot of questions, a lot of the international kids. I had one swimmer who was desperate to get home to Germany before, the country was closed, as well as kids from Eastern Bloc Europe, South America. There was a million moving parts. And then, Brad, a lot of our kids, or some of them at least, don't have the greatest infrastructure at home. This is the best it's going to be. Can they stay, the dorm, self-isolation? There was a million things. And now, the NCAA has given us some clarity on this issue. Obviously, they said, hey, the seniors whose season was cut short can return next year and not affect the total amount of aid. So, you being a baseball guy, for the audience watching this, the sport of baseball, whether it's the University of Texas or Notre Dame or New Mexico State or UCLA, we all get 11.7 scholarships. Mm-hmm. So let's pick a couple of seniors. Chance Roach, who's our starting our Friday night pitcher. He's 15-3. He's a senior. If he returns, and Tristan Peterson, who is our All-American first baseman, who's a senior, if they don't get drafted and they return, we can give them the same amount of aid or less and not count against our 11.7 scholarships. So if they were both on a half scholarship, or if they were both on a full scholarship, we can give that to them, and we can still have 11.7 scholarships to give to the rest of the team and then all the incoming freshmen. But, in the sport of baseball, that they've condensed the Major League Baseball draft to now 5 rounds. Now, Nick Gonzalez, unfortunately, will go, but all those other kids who might have been drafted and the high school kids coming in who might have been drafted will now be coming to New Mexico State. And Coach Kirby is only going to have 11.7 scholarships to deal with. Now, if he decides that Tristan Peterson or Chance Roach should get a full scholarship, right, he's going to take both of those kids from a half to a full. Well, that's 50% to 100, 50% to 100. That means that Coach Kirby won't have 11.7 scholarships to deal with. He'd only have 10.7. Right. So there's a lot of mathematics that go into this. The sports that we're talking about are women's track and field, baseball, softball, men's and women's golf, and men's and women's tennis. So we've pegged, if all those seniors came back and there was 39 total, not 39 on aid, but 39 total, we were looking at, in the ballpark of $300,000 extra that we would have to come up with.
So then, I just see this thing with Coach Kirby and with all the winter sports, spring sports teams with like that math meme with like all the, the calculations going. Because how do you do this? Do you still only have 25 kids on the roster for baseball? So then, you're bringing in new kids and you've got the existing kids. And how do you get everybody playing? If I'm a freshman too, I might be pissed. Like, hey, wait a second, this guy was supposed to be gone.
Yeah. Well, one thing, the NCAA, in addition to allowing you to give the same or less of a scholarship to the senior and not have it count against the aid, they also lifted the cap. Baseball was one of those few sports that had a cap, a roster cap, of 35. So now you're going to have X amount of guys on the roster. So, but you hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of seniors who, were hopeful of moving on. There's a lot of freshmen who, and underclassmen who wanted to move up and take those senior spots. And if a Tristan Peterson comes back, you're sure he's going to be at first base. If Chance Roach comes back, you're sure he's pretty much going to be your Friday night starter again. So, yeah, there is a interesting dynamic there. Now, at the same time, I think it was the right move for the NCAA to do a lot of the, like a sport like golf, tennis really hadn't even got started from a conference standpoint. Women's track had just, won the indoor for the first time in history and were poised to win it again. I think besides the finances and the student athletes, I really think the Aggie fans kind of got robbed. Nick Gonzalez is maybe a once-in-a-lifetime guy, a lock first-round draft pick in New Mexico State, and baseball is not going to happen. The first time in our history. Softball had already beat 5 Power 5. They went to Arizona State. They beat Nebraska. They beat Oregon State, and they beat ASU. They also beat Nebraska previously, so they were on a roll. Like I said, women's track had won the championship, and women's golf had won 2 individual championships, finished second in the University of Arizona tournament. So they had their eyes on going to nationals this year. So, a lot of disappointment all around.
That'll do it for another edition of Quarantining with Mario. We'll catch you guys next time.